I don't do live streams very often, so I'm not very smart on how to do them. I think this will be okay. Seems all right. Okay, looks like I'm live there. Maybe I should set this phone back a bit. I'm using my phone. Yeah, I'm thinking about investing in a second monitor so that I can do live streams more often, and I can do like reaction videos, stuff like that, a little easier. I'll just wait a little bit, get some people in here. How do I see where the chat is? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we have any chats yet. Can someone leave a comment if they can hear me okay? I'd appreciate that. Maybe you can't hear me. All right. I'm starting to see some chats. Great. Daniel, thank you. Sharpshooter, thank you. All right, we'll give a few more minutes. I published a video today. When I publish a video, I usually reward myself with a Coca-Cola. All right, looks like everything's working well. Nice. Yeah, I'm not too smart when it comes to YouTube technical stuff, the cameras, the microphones, the editing, all that. I'm not very good at it at all, actually. If I make them enough money at this, it's probably the first thing I'm going to do is hire someone to take care of the camera and the filming and the editing and all that sort of stuff for me. All right, looks like it's 8:30. 22:30. How many people we got in here? 15? All right, I guess that's enough to get started. So, first off, I need to apologize because I was pretty absent for the past 2 weeks. I was just really busy in September, and so the first week of October, I took off. I didn't do much. It was kind of an unplanned vacation. And then I had some other sponsorships videos that I needed to work on. So I didn't really get anything timely out when all this big news happened. And there's a lot of big news that has happened. So there was the peace between Israel and Gaza. And pretty much the same day, the trade war reignited with China and the U.S. And a little bit before that, there was the federal government in the United States shut down. Now, I can talk about that later if you want to. But I think it's important to talk about the Israel-Gaza peace because it is extremely significant. It's very important. And it's pretty incredible that Trump was able to put together a plan. He put together, well, I say Trump's administration, right? The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, little Marco, now he's all grown up, big Marco. So the Trump administration, they put together a 20-point plan and pushed it out to Israel and to Hamas And surprising to a lot of people, Hamas agreed to it, and Israel did too. I did not think we'd be seeing an end to this war this year. Honestly, I thought that Israel was going to keep going at it until they had thoroughly eradicated every card-carrying member of Hamas, everyone who claims to be Hamas. And I guess that they were able to agree on this plan, and Trump made it happen. So that is, if you're counting, that is 8 wars ended within 8 months of his second administration. So although I think I'm pretty critical of Trump, I personally don't like what he, and okay, let me change that. I don't like how he says things. I don't disagree with what he's saying, but the way he says it, I don't really like. I don't care for it. I think he's far too rude to America's allies. But I do have to say, even though he is really rude, he is often really, really funny. Like, he's just hilarious, especially when he puts up memes on X. So let's talk a little bit about this peace process that's going to happen. So far, it looks like it's all good. The beginning phases have already happened. The IDF is Israel's army. They've moved back to, like, they call it a yellow line. So they've moved out of the combat operations within Gaza, and they've honored a ceasefire. Hamas has turned over the hostages that were alive, and they're still looking for the hostages that are dead, the bodies. They're still yet to turn all those over. Probably be a little bit of a delay on those. I mean, some of those bodies might be buried under rubble, or they might be in a spot which is like a booby-trapped spot. So there might be a bomb, an IED waiting there for them. We'll have to see. But it looks like it's going forward. But it doesn't mean that there's peace in Gaza. So if you've been paying attention, you would have seen that there are different militant groups within Gaza. And I see some questions popping up. I'll get to those in a sec. Some different groups within Gaza besides Hamas. And that's always been the case, right? Hamas has just pretty much been the biggest gang, and they got elected, and so they were the government. But the way they got elected was also really cruel, okay? Like, if you didn't vote for Hamas, then it was basically a death sentence, from allegedly, all right, from what I've been told. Anyways, there's other militant groups, basically clans, like large families that live within Gaza, and they've had some firefights with Hamas before Hamas has disarmed. So if there was any indication on who the bad guys were in this conflict, well, there you go, right? Terrorists acting like terrorists, big surprise. You know, along that note, too, there's always been a lot of news, especially coming out of the UN, about how there's been a famine in Gaza. And immediately after the peace deal was struck, you had malls and cafes opening up in Gaza, parades happening, people out there celebrating with internet access and brand new smartphones, and none of them looked like they had just gone through a famine. So, you know, you have to understand that Israel might have won the kinetic war, but they definitely lost the propaganda war. Hamas, Palestine, won the propaganda war in this conflict, big time. So what's going to happen? Well, apparently Hamas is going to disarm. A security force is going to be set up, and that's going to include members of different nations within the region. And any Hamas members that do disarm, they'll be granted amnesty, which means they won't be charged for any crime, and they'll be allowed to travel outside of Gaza. And The Gaza itself will be ruled by a committee called the Board of Peace, and the chairman of the board is Donald Trump. Another notable member of that board is Tony Blair, used to be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And they're just going to rebuild Gaza. And that security force is going to be interesting. I imagine that what will happen in reality is that Hamas will essentially just rebrand. That the brand of Hamas will be gone for the most part. And a lot of the former members of Hamas are going to try and join up and be part of these the security force in Gaza. So they're just basically going to be putting on a new set of clothes, right? A new uniform is going to happen. I imagine a lot of Hamas leadership is going to leave Gaza and go to Europe, probably, especially these countries that have very generous or foolish, however you want to say it, asylum programs, especially like the UK, Sweden, Germany, places like that, especially the UK. So don't be surprised if you see former Hamas people in the UK starting up a new political party, or being a guest speaker at a university or something like that. Like, that's very, very possible, likely, I would even say. Part of the issues with the cleanup, though, is that there is a lot of unexploded bombs, UXO, unexploded ordnance. This is what that's called, UXO. And a small fraction of that are bombs that Israel dropped that just didn't blow up, because that always happens when you drop bombs. Not all of them are going to explode, but they're still very, very dangerous. A bigger portion of the UXO are IEDs, improvised explosive devices, or booby traps, basically bombs left by Gaza, by Hamas, in all sorts of different houses. Anywhere where the Israeli forces would have been going and trying to find the hostages or trying to find Hamas, it's a good chance that there was a bomb set up there. So that's going to be a big problem going forward, because it's going to slow down construction and rebuilding on one end, but it's also going to endanger the surviving Palestinians, right? They might go back to their home, not realize that it's actually a bomb there, and so expect to see stuff like that happen in the news too. On the flip side, though, it is an excellent opportunity for Palestinians to learn trade, which is getting rid of bombs and UXOs, okay? And that is a valuable skill to have. I imagine that once the Ukraine conflict ends, that's going to be a very valuable skill to have up in Ukraine. I mean, it's a valuable skill to have all over the world, especially Africa, but it's going to continue to be a valuable skill. So, it's dangerous work, but it pays well, and it's a significant employment opportunity for Palestinians, which otherwise didn't really have a lot of opportunities. Like Palestine, Gaza, they didn't export anything. They relied solely on aid from the rest of the world for everything. So, now maybe they can make some money. All right, let me take a look at the chat here and see what we got. Let me start at the beginning. All right. Daniel says, I can hear Sharpshooter. Good to see you, Sharpshooter. Thanks for being in here. Irene, good evening. Good evening, Irene. Mark asks, Uncle Topher, will this stream be uploaded? Probably. I think it'd probably be smart for me to put subtitles on this stream, edit it down a bit, and then put on some subtitles. You know, most of my audience lives in Taiwan, and without subtitles, it's very hard for them to understand what I'm saying. Another question from Mark. I heard that Palestinians chose Hamas because they feel the other party wouldn't protect them from Israel assaulting them. Yeah, possibly. You know, I wouldn't disagree with that statement. I do know that there was a lot of voter intimidation coming from Hamas, though. So they were basically, you know, it's kind of like how Putin in Russia, how Putin always wins the vote because, you know, everyone who opposes Putin ends up in prison or gets thrown out of a window. Mark also says, I got to know a girl born and raised in Gaza who is now attending college in Europe. She says the majority actually does not favor Hamas, but they have no choice other than Hamas because there was no one else who would protect them. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm sure that they're taught from a young age to hate Israel. And, you know, Israel has done a number to the Palestinian people for sure. And there's a good argument that initially it was unwarranted back in 1948. But since that time, it has been retaliation from attacks, well, except for one instance. It was retaliation from attacks on Israel. There was one time, I think it was 1963, I'm not sure, maybe it was in the 50s, where Israel did a preemptive war. It was called the Six-Day War. But, I mean, you know, Israel's in a tough spot there. And, you know, I feel it sucks for the Palestinian people, for sure. But to put it into context, in the 1940s, and especially in the 1940s, the Palestinian people were not the only group of people to lose their home. There were millions and millions, tens of millions of people who were forced into exile all throughout Europe and Asia. I mean, Taiwan understands this story really well, right? And out of all of these groups of people, the only ones that are consistently causing a problem in that region, it's the Palestinians. Even when Palestinians in previous wars in the 60s and the 70s, when they went to other countries as or refugees, they eventually started, what is it, the PLA, I think, the Palestinian Liberation, or the PLO, sorry, the PLA, very different, the PLO, and caused problems in all of these other Muslim countries that brought them safe harbor. So, you know, the issue with Palestine, part of it's a cultural issue, right? It's not, it takes two to tango, okay? I'm not saying that Israel is completely innocent in this whole conflict or any of this stuff, because they're not. But in my opinion, I think that that Hamas especially is far worse, you know, morally, on the moral scale, is far, far worse, far more evil than Israel has been. And that's just a problem with any Muslim extremist groups. That's just the case with any Islamic extremist groups. It's why places like Saudi Arabia and you know, Qatar and Dubai and, you know, the UAE, they don't allow groups like the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas and the Houthis and all this stuff, right? I mean, these are Muslim-run countries that don't allow the radical Islam groups. because they know it's a big problem. It is a big problem. All right, let's move on from that to the rare earth issues, okay? So China's trade war, pretty much the same time that this Palestine-Gaza war, the Israel-Gaza war was coming to an end, China dropped a bombshell notice of new rare earth restrictions. It's very strange, very weird. So apparently what happened is they sent out a letter to a bunch of different countries, and one of these countries forwarded that letter, showed it to the US, and said like, hey, did you see what this is, what they're saying here? And they're basically saying that anything that's made using China's rare earth needs to be there's a paperwork process, needs to be cleared by China before it can be exported. Okay, so even if Taiwan buys a bunch of rare earth from China, Taiwan now, according to China, needs China's permission to sell that, to use it in a semiconductor and sell it to the US. Or if, Pakistan decides to make some magnets or something like that using China's rare earth. Or if Vietnam decides to make some fans that have rare earth inside of them, that they now need China's approval before they can export that product. Okay, so this is kind of silly for a couple of reasons. It puts a giant bureaucratic chokehold on the entire world. Two, it's difficult to enforce. So it's just a paperwork trail, first off. Second, how is China going to ensure that it's a legit, that what they're saying is true, right? It's hard for them to actually enforce this. So it's really stupid to make a rule that you can't enforce. It just makes you look weak and crazy. And that's kind of what's happening here. And the timing of it is also very, very strange because I think it's November 11th is when the temporary truce for the U.S. tariffs on China expires. So they need to reach an agreement, a trade agreement, before like the second week of November. And all of a sudden dumping this crazy restriction on products that are going to the U.S. that involve anything rare earth coming out of China. I mean, why would you do that? It's very, very strange. There's a couple rumors out there why that's happening. One is that they wanted to take the news away from Trump's success in Gaza. I don't really agree with that. I just think that happened to be a coincidence. The other is that it wanted to overshadow Taiwan's 10/10 holiday. Maybe, maybe. I'm not sure about that one either. But the other one is that there's a rumor from China that Xi Jinping had a stroke. And maybe he was hospitalized. So maybe they had something like this that was sent out that looks like something Xi Jinping would do to trick the world that no, he didn't have a stroke, he's fine, he's still calling the shots. Don't know. Now, next week is when the CCP meets for a big meeting within their government. It's called the Fourth Plenum. Yeah, I think I pronounced that right. And this will undoubtedly be a big focus for that meeting. I think initially it was supposed to be a conversation about personnel changes, That's what I've been told. Or and now the trade discussion with the U.S. will probably be the biggest thing that the leaders of the CCP come and talk about. There's a lot of rumors that Xi Jinping is losing power, and that one of the groups that is gaining power within the CCP is the group within the Ministry of Commerce that is actually negotiating with the U.S., actually talking with the U.S. And I think that they've been able to reach somewhat of a deal. And it's very likely that Xi Jinping didn't like this, had this kind of a time bomb set up in the rare earth restrictions, and decided to sabotage the negotiation there. Even though it also came within the Ministry of Commerce, these rare earth restrictions, it came from a different bureau, so a different department within the same group. That's a big possibility. I mean, it's so messy from the outside looking in. The CCP is so messy from the outside looking in. We don't get very much information at all. It's a lot of just rumors and big officials and generals and other major officers and stuff that just disappear. So with any organization, I'm sure you know this if you've been in a big company or worked in government or anything like that, that from the outside looking in, that's always the best face forward, right? That's the best you're going to look. So within a company, even though behind the scenes there might be a lot of nasty internal politics within the company itself, they're not going to display that and put that in front of their clients or their customers or anything like that, right? If it's a restaurant, the kitchen might be really messy, but they're going to make an effort to make sure that the dining area where the customers eat is at least a little clean. So if the CCP is this messy from the outside perspective, how bad is it actually internally? Right? Probably pretty bad. That's my guess. Trump immediately said that, okay, you want to play around with this, you're going to have a 100% tariff increase on November 1st, unless you undo that. And that's stuck, and China hasn't responded with that very much. I mean, I think both countries talked about extra fees on ships that were coming into port, but the U.S. also said we're going to put an embargo on software, critical software that China needs, and this is software that's used in designing and manufacturing different computer chips and AI models and stuff like that. So that's actually coming from the U.S. And if that embargo does happen and it doesn't get into China, that would really hinder China's AI technology. It would hurt the U.S. a little bit, but not nearly as much as it would hurt China. There were already a bit of an argument here between China and the U.S. regarding soybeans. You see, China imports most of its food, and a lot of the feed for its pigs and its chickens and stuff is soybeans. They haven't bought any soybeans from the U.S. Compared to last year, they bought, I forget the numbers, it was something like $27 billion worth of soybeans or something like that. But they haven't bought any from the U.S., and they've been, at least not since like the summer, and they've been buying their soybeans from Brazil and Argentina instead, which, although Brazil and Argentina, they grow a lot of soybeans, they don't grow enough to actually offset what the U.S. grows. So the U.S. soybean farmers are hurting because they lost a customer, right? All the best they can do is store those soybeans or process them into something like oil or something else, but they're going to take a loss on that crop. So it does hurt the U.S. soybean farmers, some of the U.S. soybean farmers, not all of them. Still, we're talking probably less than 100,000 people in the U.S. who are going to be financially hit. This is something that the U.S. can easily subsidize, so it's not really going to be a big issue. But one of the problems is that, interestingly enough, China doesn't have as high a demand for soybeans as they did last year, which I thought was really weird, right? There should be a big demand for soybeans because you're not bringing in as much. Why isn't there as big a demand? Well, because they're not growing as many pigs. They're not raising as many pigs. Huh? Why not? Why are they not raising as many pigs? Because even before all of this tariff trade war stuff, even the stuff that started this spring, before Trump started it all, even before all this happened, the Chinese people were buying less pig meat. They were eating less pork. So that's not a good sign. It's not a good sign for China's economy at all. Not at all. So how will this play out with the U.S. trade war? I think U.S. is going to probably take like a broken nose, a black eye. You know, it's going to hurt the U.S. a bit, but China might get like mangled, like hospitalized, broken bones everywhere. Their economy is likely on real thin ice, much more fragile than they care to admit. You know, they're dumping a lot of money into projects that are absurd, that have no return on investment. Okay, huge bridges out in the middle of places that don't really need huge bridges. Giant tunnels out in mountain ranges that don't need a big tunnel. Most of their Belt and Road Initiative projects have gone belly up. They just haven't worked out. It's been a failed investment after failed investment. They have proven over and over and over again in the past 5 years, ever since COVID-19, that they are very business unfriendly. Very business unfriendly. They're losing a lot of foreign investment. And foreign investment is what made China rich. It wasn't the CCP policies that made China wealthy. It wasn't the wisdom of the CCP. It was them opening up their huge labor market for business and ton of US and European and Japanese and Taiwanese money being dumped into China to set up factories. That's how China got rich. They didn't get rich off their own merits so much. They got rich from foreign investment and from exporting stuff to the U.S. and Europe. So yeah, it's just not going to work out for them. They don't really have any other cards to play, especially after this rare earth thing. That was their second to last card. The only other thing that they can do is sell off, do a mass, like we call it a fire sale, do a mass sell-off of the U.S. Treasury bonds that they own, so U.S. debt that they own, which would hurt the U.S. in the short term, but that's a card that you can only play once. After that, it's done, and they would lose out on their investment. I mean, they bought this debt as an investment. A government bond is an investment mechanism. It's not something that should be used as a weapon. And it's something that the U.S. would recover from, but China would not. You know, and when they're buying all these soybeans, for example, from Argentina and Brazil, they're using U.S. dollars, right? You can't. The U.S. has so many more economic weapons at its disposal than China does. And tariffs are a small part of that. I mean, if China really wants, I'm sorry, if the U.S. really wants to, they can start freezing Chinese assets. They can start publishing Chinese assets of CCP members, right? If they just make a big list of here's all these CCP members, here's what they have in their bank accounts overseas. You know, how's that going to look? Not great, right? You know, just exposing the corruption all over the place. There's hundreds of wealthy CCP, high-level official members who have their family members living in the West, in the U.S. and other nations, like the girl who crashed her car in Australia recently, crashed like $1 million car. Right, that's just an example. So there's all these things that the U.S. can do that would severely affect China. So we'll see how it plays out. I think next week will be really, really interesting. What happens in the fourth plenum, if I'm pronouncing that right? If this big meeting with the CCP, if Xi Jinping retains power or not. There seems to be a lot of motivation to get him out and use him as a scapegoat so that China can open up for business once again and try and recover its economy. All right, let's see if we got any more chats going through. Hey, super chat from Ellie. Hey, thank you so much. Let me go back a little more. All right, Lincoln, good to see you. Thank you. Jay-Z, China's good at bluffing and mouth threats. Yeah, China's good at bluffing. China's good at a couple things. They're good at bluffing. They are really good at propaganda. They're really good at copying technology. You know, there's a lot of skills in China. China's getting much better also with soft power, with exporting its culture, right? With like TikTok and some other stuff, some video games, a couple of, well, like music that you hear in like TikTok and Instagram Reels, stuff like that. So China's getting better at it, although I think a lot of it's coming out of Hong Kong. So China's good at a couple of things, but they would be much, much better if they were less oppressive. All right, Jay-Z says, as long as Wang Hu-nim and Wang Yi still work out there well, I figure Xi is still fine. Both of them are Xi's brains and hitmen. Yeah, maybe. You know, I mean, you probably know a lot more about that situation than I do. I know that the premier was in North Korea when the rumor that Xi Jinping had a stroke, and he stayed in North Korea. So I think Xi Jinping's been seen in public since then too. So I think the rumors that he had a stroke are probably exaggerated. Hito Popper, some people think one of the reasons that China using rare earths start the trade war is to force U.S. to oppose the Taiwan independence. Yeah, maybe. I don't think it's going to work out though. I mean, what's really going to happen is that what was already happening, where people realize like, oh, China has a monopoly on this rare earth, which by the way, rare earth isn't rare. Any mining operation, if you have an iron mine or an aluminum mine, you can pull out rare earth. It should be called trace earth because it's just a little small amount. And to get a usable amount from like an iron mine or a gold mine, something like that, it requires a lot more processing, which is labor intensive, and it's also very bad for the environment. Okay, so the world was happy to let China ruin its own environment to get cost-effective rare earth. But since then, the rest of the world is starting to open up rare earth processing all over the world. And there's also, you know, we see this in Ukraine, in the U.S., in Africa. So in about 3 years, China's not going to have a monopoly on this anymore. And if anything, this move has told investors that you need to fuel these projects so that they happen faster. So we could see China losing its monopoly within like the next 2 years, because I don't think it's very technologically intense. It's just you have to build the facilities and get it going. It's just like acid baths, hydrochloric acid, from what I understand. I know U.S. already struck a $500 million deal with Pakistan to help develop rare earth technology, and Pakistan got that technology from China. So China developed the technology, showed Pakistan how to do it, and the U.S. just bought that technology from Pakistan. Sounds like something China would do. Okay, so China's losing its influence quickly. So again, it's a very short-sighted policy. Let's see, how do I get back to that? Okay. And again, thanks for that super chat, Ellie Chanel. Cup of coffee, I appreciate that. Okay, he also says, they assume Trump will always back down, and it's good timing too because the midterm is near. Yeah, you see, the Democrats in the U.S., they tried to circulate this meme called taco. Trump always chickens out, T-A-C-O, taco, which is also very delicious Mexican food. And it's completely unwarranted. You know, Trump doesn't always chicken out, not at all. Not at all. It's completely wrong. The Democrats are doing so terrible with their messaging, and it's painful to watch because, you know, there's a lot of issues that the Democrats stand on that I agree with. I don't agree with everything that the conservatives in the U.S. are doing, but man, the Democrats just keep screwing up non-stop. So yeah, assuming that Trump was going to back down and chicken out, wrong. I mean, he hasn't backed down and chickened out at all in the trade war so far. Not at all. You know, he put down those huge tariffs, those crazy numbers, and then drove the markets crazy, made the world go nuts. Remember that, April 2nd of this year? People went crazy. Markets went all over the place. And then waited a week and said, okay, we're going to reduce it all down to 10%, and we'll do retaliatory tariffs. If you give us tariffs, we give you the exact same back, and let's enter negotiations. And the world was happy to line up and be in these to get a better deal. So I think it was a very calculated move from Trump. I don't think it was chickening out at all. Hito says they assume Trump will always back down because it's good timing. The midterm is near. Yeah, midterm elections are a year away, and Trump has been doing really well on domestic problems. Crime was a big issue in the U.S., and Trump has reduced crime significantly. And a lot of the things that Democrats said that he was going to do, they were like, you know, the fear-mongering, he hasn't done. You know, they said that Trump is going to make abortions illegal, and he didn't do that. You know, right? So, you know, Trump was going to take away the voting rights of women, and he didn't do that. So all these things that they said Trump was going to do, he hasn't done. And all these claims of him being like, you know, like the No Kings protests that happened recently. You know, claiming that he's a king, that he's a dictator. Look, dictators don't allow you to have protests and parades in their front yard. That's not what dictators do. So the Democrats, their messaging is pretty terrible, pretty bad. And a lot of the polls are reflecting that. I think they've lost over 4 million voters that have registered as a Democrat, and the Republicans have gained 2 million. And this was before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, so those numbers are probably even worse at this point. I think the conservatives are going to be in power for quite a while. The Democrats are just, they don't have they don't have a leader. That's the problem. The Democrats are split between socialists, who are mostly led by AOC. And, she's good looking, but she doesn't have much experience, and she doesn't make a lot of allies. And split between that and like old school Dems like Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, who also aren't really loved all that much. All right. Johnny South says, hi Johnny. Thanks for joining us. Hito again says, China don't care about their people suffering, but U.S. do. Yeah, China, I agree with that. China generally doesn't care about people suffering, but the people care. And we have seen that before in China. China's got a long history of the people getting tired of suffering, and they do something about it. Mark, but that doesn't actually do much in dictating state. They do take money from civilians. They did that before. Yep, I agree. EU is freezing Russia assets. Did not help much. Yeah, it didn't help much because the EU continued to buy oil from Russia, right? Especially Germany. So, do average Americans think Obama's or Trump's administration is better? I think many don't like Obama's policy, but think he is more rational. I actually met Obama, shook his hand. It was before he was president. It was when he was a senator. I think most Americans who are not conservative, most Americans who are in the center, like Obama's presence much more than Trump's. I mean, this is also my personal opinion, right? I wish that I could have a president who has the charisma and the character and the speaking abilities of Obama, the eloquence of Obama, but the little bit more common sense policies that Trump has. There's a lot of people who hate Obama within the U.S. A lot of people hate Obama. And just objectively speaking, Obama's presidency was pretty lackluster, meh. He's a popular guy. He said a lot of words that people liked. But when it came to actually getting stuff done, wasn't that impressive. In fact, caused a lot of problems in the world, right? Didn't do anything when Russia took Crimea. Did nothing. Caused the Arab Spring and pulled the troops out of Iraq way too quickly, which gave rise to ISIS, which caused a war in Syria, a civil war in Syria, which means that hundreds of millions of people, tens of millions of people, got displaced all throughout Syria, and also with the wars and civil wars that happened in North Africa. A lot of those people ended up going to Europe and are right now causing a lot of problems in Europe, right? You don't like Syrians firebombing people in Sweden. Well, thanks, Obama. One of the few small things that he did do was the Affordable Health Care Act, which relates to American health care, which actually made things much more expensive in the long run. And in the short run, it wasn't even all that helpful either. So that has ended up being a big failure. I mean, there are some aspects of it that are a bit of a success, but in the long run, it's not. It doesn't seem like it is. So Obama's presidency, there's just not much good that came out of it. And there's a lot of suffering that did come out of it. I guess probably the best thing that he did is that he legalized gay marriage. So I think that was a big win. But other than that, he just really screwed up. a lot of things. But he wasn't a very experienced politician either. You know, I mean, he was a rookie politician. At least he keeps his own words better than Trump, I guess. Yeah, you know, like Obama, but Obama, he's still a politician. He still says a lot of things that are messed up, right? Like he criticizes black people for voting for conservatives. Like what does the color of your skin have anything to do with who you vote for? What's up with that? That's so messed up. Can you imagine the opposite argument, right? If you're white, you shouldn't vote for Democrat? What the hell? That's such a messed up thing to say, but it's okay if Obama says it to black people. Not cool, right? Obama is a hypocrite. Yeah, most politicians are hypocrites. Yeah. The medical insurance policy proposed sucked, I heard. Yeah, I just talked about that. Let's see, this fits how I remember him. Yeah, there's a lot of, like I said, Obama, man, he's got cool charisma. There's cool things about him. He's a cool guy. But he's not an effective leader when it comes to policy or with getting Washington to work well. Trump is very rude. I don't like how rude Trump is, but I do have to say Trump has made me laugh more than any president ever has and probably ever will. Yeah, Trump just does a lot of hilarious stuff. Very, very funny guy. All right. You know, I guess we can chat a little bit about the U.S. Shutdown. So yeah, the U.S. Congress, the Senate, has to pass a vote for the budget every year, and usually it doesn't pass. I don't think it's actually passed for like 25 years or something like that. It's been a long time. And what happens is they basically make a vote to say that, all right, we're just going to continue with prior year's budget while we still negotiate for what's going to happen. And they, you know, we call it to kick the can down the road. So that's what they've been doing. That's what happens most of the time. And for whatever reason, the Democrats this year have decided not to do that. So the federal government has shut down in the U.S., which means that a lot of federal workers are not getting paid. Now, Trump has been able to find the money to pay the military. So this yesterday, October 15th, would have been the first paycheck that the military would have missed, but Trump was able to make sure that they got paid. And that really pissed off the Democrats. They didn't like that at all. And they are talking about suing Trump's government, suing Trump's administration because he paid the troops. That's how disconnected the Democrats are. They want to sue the federal government for paying the troops. It's insanity. It's insane how unpopular that will be. The Democrats really kind of did themselves a disservice because since the government is shut down, it's within the executive branch, within the president's right and responsibility even to shut down non-essential programs and close down non-essential programs. So any Democrat-funded program that's happening in the United States that Trump doesn't like, he now has full authority to shut that program down, fire everybody who's in it, shut it down, and not start it up again. So a lot of Democrats who work within the federal government are going to be losing their jobs. because the Democrats, 7 of them, they only need 7 votes, because 7 of them will not vote for this budget. How long will it go on? Usually they are resolved within like 2 weeks, but it's already been 2 weeks. So we'll probably see this go on maybe about a month, is what I would guess. I think this will probably be resolved by November. If it's not, I'd be pretty surprised, because that means that the Democrats are saying that no federal employees are going to get paid right coming on up to the Thanksgiving holiday and Christmas holiday. So the federal government employees just aren't going to buy Christmas gifts. You're going to have to start seeing people foreclosing on their homes because they can't pay their mortgage, getting kicked out of their apartments because they can't pay rent at Christmas time. Doesn't sound like a good idea, Democrats. All right. We got some Alice. Hey, Alice. Good to see you. Long time channel member. Bubblefish. I got no words for Democrats anymore. Yeah, I'm very disappointed with them. Very, very, very disappointed. I wish that they could get some leadership and get their stuff together and get back to their roots, which is working for the common man, right? Like the blue collar worker. That was the Democrats when I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. That's what they did. They were all like for pro unions and stuff like that. They weren't trying to put gender confused men into women's sports and like changing in girls' locker rooms, and they weren't doing sanctuary cities for violent criminals. It just doesn't make any sense to me. What are they doing? Okay, they open borders? Are you insane? Everyone in the U.S. locks their door, right? They lock their door at night. They lock their car. But you want to have open borders? Are you crazy? That's insanity. And then sanctuary cities where you're not going to prosecute like human traffickers? You're supposed to be against slavery. So why are you letting people who are doing modern day slavery free? You know, you're not hunting them down as you should be. It's insane. A pro-crime message is not going to work out for them. Helms Deep. Hi, Helms Deep. Why every YouTuber I subscribe is doing live streaming tonight? Ha 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 ha. I don't know. Other people doing live streaming? Maybe it's just bad timing. I actually wanted to do this on yesterday, but I didn't because I had some extra work I needed to get done. So I wanted to talk about Israel and the rare earth stuff a few days ago, and I just was too busy, so it didn't happen on time. I figured I had to do it because it's not going to be tomorrow's video. It wasn't today's video. Put out a video today about Pelican cases. Check that video out when you're done watching this. If you haven't seen it yet already, Pelican cases. You can get a really good deal on a phone case or a case if you're into airsoft or any of that sort of stuff. I think I put the description. I think in the description of this live stream, I put the link to where you can buy these cases. Anyways, these guys reached out to me, and they're a product that I used when I was in combat. So I was real happy that they reached out and wanted to work with me. It was just really cool opportunity. I was happy to do it. But they're having a sale right now, and so they wanted that video out today on a Thursday. And I told them that I don't think it's going to get very good views on a Thursday, but you know, you're the boss, so you, you know. Let's see. I can see how the views are doing for it right now, actually. Nope, not very good. Not great. Not great. 800 views in 2 hours, 2.5 hours. For me, that's not very good. That's actually really bad. So, all right. Well, whatever, it's okay. It's a type of video that will last. You know what I'm saying? It's not like the timing of it's not super important, but it's not going to get a lot of traction, a lot of views on a Thursday night. Tomorrow's video is going to be about the Taiwan's new rifle that I got to shoot, the T112. Very cool rifle, very cool. And I might try and put out a video on Saturday also, talking about the Coup challenge, Cou's Mandarin Monster challenge that I was part of, which was embarrassing, to say the least. Oh, while I'm showing gear, you can get to Lucas in Taiwan. He can print you out and sell you some really cool stuff, like a Buddha Trump or a cool Taiwan keychain. He prints this stuff out, 3D printer. He started a 3D printer business. It's really cool. And maybe I'll get like some affiliate links. So, if you guys think that Buddha Trump would be cool to own, that this is something that you would buy, just leave a 1 in the chat, all right? I'll talk with Lucas and maybe I can get an affiliate Trump. Oh, I'm sorry, an affiliate link, set up a web store or something. I think it's pretty funny. Yeah, so yeah, that Mandarin Monster, what an embarrassing thing. So stupid. I was only in it because Coup asked me to join. It seems like a lot of you like the Buddha Trump. Cool. Hey, Eric's in chat. Hey, Eric, good to see you, man. My airsoft might be able to use those. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you have, Pelican cases, they're expensive, but they pay for themselves because their drop rating is ridiculous. Whatever you have inside of it, if it's packed well, it's going to survive any sort of drop. You can run a car over it. I actually had to cut this out of the video because it didn't really fit too well. But I saw a top secret laptop that was in a Pelican case, and it was accidentally dropped out of a moving not 5 ton, a deuce and a half, a 2.5 ton truck. This was in Iraq. So this Pelican case drops out of the back of the truck and just starts bouncing around, bonk, 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 down the highway. We're like, holy shit. I had to pull the convoy over and recover it, and came back, and we thought for sure that this laptop, which had a lot of top secret information on it, that it was damaged beyond repair, but it was totally fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I was amazed. I was really impressed. So yeah, if you have anything like cameras, airsoft, anything that's a little expensive, then I think a Pelican case is a really good investment because it's going to protect it. And now they're making the smartphone cases. So if you have a really expensive smartphone, and if you have a job where you work outside, I would definitely recommend getting a Pelican case for that. Yeah, a lot of you like the Buddha Trump. I do too. I thought it was pretty funny. Mark says, actually, I'm thinking about going for the military again. I've done my citizen duty before, but I don't feel the Army's improved since then. I've had a lot of dreams recently where I was back in the Army, like I was rejoining the Army. And I've had this thought coming a lot that how should I say this? I wish I was young enough to rejoin. That if I was in my 30s, if I was 10 years younger and still young enough to where the military could accept me, I would rejoin America's Army. under under this administration. I thought about that a lot, actually. Um, but you know, I like living in Taiwan. I think the YouTube channel that I have now is a very interesting job. I've been able to work with Taiwan's army in some extent, so I'm not going anywhere, but I've had like it's like a recurring dream that I have that I'm rejoining the U.S. Army, going back in, and if I was able to, I think I would, because you know this is a very important time in history, right? Where I mean we are definitely in a Cold War with the CCP, and they have nuclear weapons, okay, and they got a lot of aggressive opinions, and I think it's important to stand up for something that's bigger than yourself. Bubblefish17 says, hoping to see you do a Mandarin video in the near future. Well, my friend, it will not happen in the near future. No, no, no. I'm taking classes. I have a Pimsleur app that I study with, and I've started actually using the Grok AI to chat with as a like a tutor. But I think I might get some online tutoring here, pay for some online classes, because I do need improvement. And the problem is that I don't use Chinese in my day-to-day life. I don't use Mandarin in my day-to-day life. I don't. You know, I'll go to a restaurant or to like a convenience store, a 7-Eleven. I know enough Mandarin to order food, to buy something, and that's all I really do with the Mandarin. I actually don't interact with too many people at all. So let's see, it's been an hour. I'll wait for a few more questions. See if anyone's got any more questions. I'll wait about a minute, and then I think we can call this live stream. "58 people watching. That's really cool. That's a lot more than I expected. I just had this live stream because I wanted to talk about Israel and these rare earths. You know, it's just such a short-sighted move from China. But China does a lot of really short-sighted policies. You know, short-term gain, long-term devastating. Really bad ideas. Really bad ideas in the long term. I shouldn't say China. I should say the CCP does really, really bad policies where it might seem like it makes sense in the short term, but in the long term, it's a really bad idea. You know, one-child policy, zero COVID, the Great Leap Forward, all these just so dumb. Cultural revolution. Yeah, let's get rid of all of our doctors. I feel you. Get a Pelican case for Buddha Trump. Yes. Taiwan needs you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bubblefish. Helms Deep. Topher can compensate and can compete. Sorry. Topher can compete in Mandarin Monster again next year after more practice. Will there be another Mandarin Monster? Bujida. I am 29 and still doing medicine, but still I feel struggle about it. Oh, are you studying for medicine? Well, you can be a doctor in the military. Mark says, haha, I can help you with Mandarin as a hobby. Studying is tedious, so teaching it could be so fun. I do get a lot of people who offer to teach me. Holmes Deep. Topher, you and Tommy Cheese live stream time and run overlapping. Oh no, Tommy's my friend. Oh, I'm sorry, Tommy. I didn't know he was doing a live stream tonight. Oh no. I feel bad. I hope none of my audience Go watch his live stream after you're done with this one. Good to see you live streaming. Hey, look at that. That looks like that's Stan. Is that you, Stan? I think so. So yeah, all right, I don't see any other, oh, and a couple other questions coming in. All right, Nana. Hey, Nana, channel member. Will you put subtitles on your live videos? My English listening skills aren't very good. Yes, I will put some, well, I'm not going to say yes. They will automatically get put on after a while. I might make this video into a published video as a separate video and publish it with subtitles. Yeah, Stan is in chat. Stan from Poland. He has done some really great interviews recently. So definitely check out his channel, and you'll see some pretty impressive interviews. And I saw that you also talked recently with Aiden from the Above Light, which was he's a cool guy. It was a good show. You know, Stan, you might have missed some of the complaining about the Democrats. I just wish they'd get their stuff together. You know, because here's the problem, is that if the Dems keep running this course of doing super woke politics, and that their only campaigning is that Trump is bad, Trump is the next Hitler, who's bringing peace to Israel. What are you talking about? That it's just going to continue to lose election after election after election, and they're going to get weaker and weaker and weaker, and there's going to be a huge power vacuum. And America is going to be like a de facto one-party system, which is not a good thing. Okay, democracies, they can run very efficiently on a one-party system, but that's not really how democracies are designed to run. So they need to really get some good leadership in there and change their campaign and change their tune and figure it out. Or maybe another party, a third party, can rise up to take their place. But, you know, like, this is how disconnected the Democrats are, is that they saw in the presidential election that they lost the majority of young male voters. So young men overwhelmingly voted for Trump instead of Kamala Harris. And they thought, oh, what are we going to do? How can we recapture, how can we get that young male vote? How can we connect with young men? So they commissioned like I think it was like $20 million study to try and understand how they can advertise to the young male voter, and they put an obese, unattractive woman in charge of this study. What are you thinking? You could have given me $20 and I would have told you how to talk to young men. But you give 20 million to someone who's not a young man to just continue to fail. Just absurd. Tommy's doing streaming every day. Tommy's got a bunch of really interesting takes. That guy knows more about equipment than I ever will. Stan says, Aiden is a great guy. Yeah, Aiden is a really good guy. Stan, I've talked to some of my Democrat friends in the U.S. Moderates see DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America, as the main problem. I would agree. And that's just it. The moderates don't have a choice. Their choice is the conservative party, which today's conservative is left of the conservatives of like the 1990s, right? So older voters like myself, we remember the conservatives, the Christian coalition in the 1990s, and how they wanted to like ban rap music. and stuff like that. But today's, Trump's MAGA movement is nothing like that. So Trump is much more centered than than uh, than he is far right. And yeah, I mean, obviously, you're going to vote for the party of common sense. You're not going to vote pro-crime. Only a lunatic would do that. You'd have to be brainwashed, which a lot of people are brainwashed. Helms Deep, we wish Dems were doing well too, as check and balance. Yep. Harry Chen, CCP makes good slogans, especially things that don't exist in their society. Yeah, they are pretty good at making slogans. And I mean, like, if you don't study the history, if you don't look into it, then you don't, it's effective. They have that claim that, China's been a civilization that's lasted for 5,000 years. You think, oh shit, that's pretty impressive. But that's not actually true. That's like saying Egypt's a civilization that has lasted for 7,000 years. No, it's not. The name Egypt has been around for that long, but it doesn't mean that that's a continuous chain of civilization and government. This civilization has risen and fallen and fallen and risen, over and over and over again. Same with China. So like the CCP has not been around for 5,000 years. But yeah, it's a good talking point. I mean, it's a good slogan. Bubblefish. I remember my German friend once said Nazis are not German. Well, I mean, not all Nazis were German. I didn't get it back then, but now I understand when people say CCP does not represent the country of China. Yeah. Okay, I get what he's saying. I get what he's saying. Yeah, you don't want a political party to be the identity of your entire nation, your entire group of people. My Goat, hi from Taiwanese in Florida. Hello, My Goat. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. I hope Florida's nice. Oh, Stan continues to talk. And then there was White Dudes for Kamala. Very unauthentic and cringy. I forgot all about the White Dudes for Kamala. Yeah, Kamala. I mean, Jesus Christ, what they had. What was it, like $1.2 billion campaign just to lose in the most spectacular fashion? Turning down interviews with Joe Rogan and stuff like that. And then writing a book that says that it was the closest election ever, which is completely wrong. I mean, like, it's so easy to fact check somebody nowadays, and they just can't help but lie nonstop. It's just that, and that's just it. You're insulting the voters' intelligence. I can get a little bit, like a little bit of exaggeration, a little bit of hypocrisy here and there. Okay, I expect it from politicians. But just to have the non-stop lies over and over and over again, it's just shattering your credibility. Yes, the conservatives are like the Democrats in the 90s. Yeah, I agree. My Goat, as cringy as LGBTQ for Palestine or LGBTQ for Trump. Well, I think, LGBTQ for Trump, I think is fine. There's no problem with that. I've actually found a couple of, when I was doing research for the election, I was surprised to find a lot of like gay YouTubers who were voting for Trump and campaigning for him. And a lot of them were like black gay YouTubers, which is pretty funny. But yeah, gays for Palestine. Are you insane? It's literally illegal in Palestine. And here's another thing that's messed up about that, is that all these people who have been screaming for ceasefires and peace for Palestine and free Palestine and all that, when Trump actually brokers the deal, not a word out of them. Not a word. What the hell? AOC didn't say anything about Trump bringing peace to Palestine. And for 2 years, she was screaming about stopping the genocide, stopping the famine, peace for Palestine. Shocking levels of hypocrisy. Obama didn't even mention Trump in his initial tweet, right? It was what was that? Pennsylvania, I think. Senator Fetterman, big guy, never wears a suit. He's the first guy who, from the Dems, who actually thanked Trump. Mentioned Trump. Bubblefish, CCP is devil dressing up like Chinese. I'm, yeah, I think the CCP is going to turn on itself much. Well, we'll see how it happens. I think the CCP is definitely at a crossroads, and I think it can either go the way of like USSR in the 90s or like North Korea, where it either starts to be morph into like a democratic socialist but still basically retains all of its power, or just gets so disgustingly authoritarian and we'll see. I hope it goes the other way. There's a lot of Chinese people who don't deserve to live under the CCP. I hardly imagine China can be freed, though. Even Taiwan has gone a long way to make it, but China's surveillance is now on another level compared to the KMT back then. Yeah, we'll see how it pans out. I mean, if there's going to be change from China, it'll probably have to come from the top down, because from the bottom up type of change might be too difficult in this day and age. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's an unprecedented level of technology. But with that level of communication, people can organize a lot quicker than they could back then, too. So, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, if the Chinese economy gets so bad where they can't regularly pay their soldiers, well, if you can't pay the people who hold all the guns, if the people who hold all the guns start to go hungry, that's a pretty bad situation. Ellie, if you have a moment, I'd love to hear your take on Zelensky. Oh, no. What kind of person leader do you think he is? Do you think he'll be remembered in history? Yeah, I think Zelensky will be remembered in history. Zelensky was put in a really difficult situation. I think he's done extremely well for someone who has been put in such a difficult situation. And I want to give him a lot of credit for that. However, I think he has made several mistakes along the way. I think he played into politics, choosing one side over another too much in some places, especially the U.S. Like, he basically campaigned for Kamala Harris. I think that was a really bad idea. And, as a result, got embarrassed by Trump in the White House. But yeah, I think he'll be remembered through history. Oh, Bubblefish is in New Zealand. Yeah, Gays for Palestine. And what's interesting is that from what I understand, the LGB, right, the lesbian, gays, and bisexuals in the USA are getting really tired of the TQ plus, is it transsexual? I think transvestite is a bad word, is offensive. I don't know. Maybe that's the bad word. I don't know. The T, the Q, and the plus. I think the Q, I don't know what the plus is. I think the Q is queer. I have no idea what that means. It means strange, but I don't know what it means as far as sexual orientation. And I think the LGB, these people are people that's just who they are from birth, right? They're not making a choice. You don't choose to be gay. It's just who you are. But you can definitely choose if you want to have surgery to alter your gender, right? And this this TQ plus agenda being pushed down, especially on children in the U.S., is so offensive and so unpopular that the LGBs want to separate their image from that. Like, don't associate with me. Don't associate me with these people. Okay, I know, like, typically we are, but they have their own flag and their own agenda, and it has nothing to do with us. I don't know. I'm not gay, so I don't pay attention to that really. It's just what I hear. All right. Stan's talking about Scott Bessent. Scott Bessent is gay. Yeah, he's the highest. Oh, you're saying right here, highest cabinet position a gay person's ever occupied in history. Trump is not anti-LGBT. No, Trump's not anti-gay. You know, Trump's not a racist. I mean, there's so many pictures of him working alongside black people and people of all sorts of ethnicities. You know, he doesn't appoint, you know, if you hate gay people, you don't appoint them to your cabinet. Stan asked, did you hear about Russia training the PLA now? What do you think about the growing cooperation between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea? Well, that's a really great question, Stan. So yeah, I did hear about that. It was a leaked document that Russia is providing China with some amphibious assault vehicles and some parachute systems. And I think the amphibious assault vehicles are going to be pretty minor. I mean, we're talking about a country that it's putting donkeys on the front line of a Ukraine war. So if China's going to be able to do anything with those, they're just going to tear them apart, reverse engineer them, see if there's any systems that Russia has that they might be able to adopt into their own future generations, or yeah, probably the future generations of their amphibious assault vehicles. I mean, it's not like Russia has a long history of successful amphibious assaults. So I don't think there's much to be said for that. The parachutes are a little bit of a different matter. The types of parachutes that Russia is providing China with in the training are called HAHO, high altitude, high opening parachutes, where it's basically, it's for a person, it's not for equipment. So it's for a soldier and whatever their kit is, opening up at very high altitude, like 9,000 meters, maybe it's 9,000 feet. One is a lot more than others. I can't remember. Anyways, it's a really high altitude, and the idea is that they glide in from a long distance. So this could be used to infiltrate Chinese special forces deep into Taiwan's territory. There's a couple issues with it. The first is that they'd have to be extremely skilled, and Taiwan does not have a lot of areas that are very good drop zones, landing zones. So if they land in the mountainous jungle, there's a good chance that they could be injured or just stuck in a tree, right? That's not going to work. The other issue with it is that China has a lot of other ways, safer ways, better ways to infiltrate into Taiwan, right? You know, small boats launched from submarines, Navy SEAL, Frogman style. There's a lot of other options. So I don't think it's as critical as, I don't think it's as critical that some analysts make it out to be. I don't think it's a surprise that Russia and China are cooperating, because China is Russia's lifeline. You know, without China, Russia would have been bankrupt a long time ago and would not be able to fund its war in Ukraine. So I'm a little more worried about Russia's incursions, flying drones and jets into NATO airspace. I can see Russia and China trying to coordinate doing something like, a blockade of Taiwan met with an invasion of Finland or something like that at the same time, or just as an example, like a coordinated effort to try and split up the attention of NATO and the U.S. But I think NATO is strong enough now to thwart anything that Russia's doing, especially with Poland. Poland's a sleeping giant, sleeping dragon. Helms Deep, I think Clinton, Rice, and Hillary did congratulate Trump. Yeah. Clinton did. Obama eventually did. But initially, they didn't. And then they went back and they did, which is good. But I don't think I think Chuck Schumer did too. I think Chuck Schumer and Pelosi did also. Mark says, I think Taiwan also made that mistake too. Oh, okay. Yeah. I think Taiwan maybe leaned a little too heavy with one side or another, but I think they're going to figure it out. I think it was, the president, William Lai, he was recently on a podcast, which is a pretty conservative podcast, so I think that was a good move on his part. Although I didn't actually listen to it. I should go listen to it, so maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Depends on what he said. Transgender. Okay, yeah, that's right. They don't say transsexual anymore. They say transgender. Yeah, queer used to be a slur. Now it's a proud identity. Yeah, when I was a boy, we used to play a game called Smear the Queer, which, we didn't know what queer meant. There was nothing sexual about it. We're just kids. We would just throw a ball in the air, and whoever could catch the ball and run away from all the other kids, like the longest that they had it, the more points they would get, basically. We didn't really keep score. We would just try and tackle each other, and then once you tackled that kid, he would throw the ball up, and whoever caught it would run away again. Anyways, it was called Smear the Queer. But yeah, it didn't mean anything bad. But yeah, I guess now it's a slur. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, I'll have to look up that parachute system. I think it's meters. I think it's pretty high altitude. Bubblefish, Russia didn't do well in the current war, and now they are training the PLA. Wow. Yeah, training them how to steal gas, how to steal from their budget. Harry says that nuclear weapons just make every conflict more complicated. Yes, I agree. It seems to me that NATO countries are not yet capable of dealing with such conflicts. Yeah, maybe. I think that Russia's nuclear strength is vastly overestimated. They supposedly have a huge arsenal, but nuclear weapons require a lot of maintenance. And for example, America has a smaller arsenal of nukes than Russia does. But America's budget for maintaining its nuclear weapons is higher than Russia's entire military budget. So I'm sure that Russia has some nukes that are capable, but I don't think it's at 100% at all. I think it'd be impossible for it to be 100%. Remember last year when China launched ICBM test and North Korea launched an ICBM test, and Russia tried to launch an ICBM test, and it blew up on the launch pad. All right, so Russia's without maintenance, that stuff it just stops working. I know in a lot of my videos I talk about maintenance, and it's kind of boring, but maintenance is extremely important to a military. Stan says he's worried about how much China knows about the NATO military. Too many spy scandals recently. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think China's good at espionage. We were talking, they're good at propaganda, they're good at spying, they're very good at human intelligence, probably really good at other types of intelligence as well. Yeah, Buck Sexton, that's his name, Buck Sexton. I think he used to be a CIA agent. All right, some other people saying hi. Hi, good to see you. See you. All right, I think that's the chat caught up. Okay, hour and a half, that's a pretty good live stream. I'll give it about a minute in case there are any other questions. And then I think I'll sign off at 10 p.m. Go watch Tommy's live stream. Thanks a lot for watching, for joining. I appreciate it. I don't stream very often, but maybe it's something that I should do. I need to download the software and get it so that it can do automatic translation and captioning as I go. Are you in America? No, I'm not in America. I'm in Taiwan. I'm in Taiwan. Love it here. Beautiful, beautiful place. All right, that looks like that's everybody. Stan the man, what are you doing? Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. All right, thanks a lot for that, the super chat there, Stan. That's cool. I'll buy you a coffee or a beer or something next time we see each other. Go check out Stan's channel, everybody. Very informative. Bubblefish, thanks for the chat. Yeah, thank you, guys. All right, cool, guys. Looks like daytime. It's just because I have lights. Yeah. See, I got some big fat lights there. I'm in the I'm in Taiwan. Yeah, live streams are fun. They are fun. Thanks a lot, everyone, for watching, for joining. Oh man, Helm's Deep. Thanks a lot for the super chat. Thanks a lot, man. Helm's Deep. I think that's a Skyrim reference. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, look at that. I can. I need to do it with. Oh, sorry. I think I'm Lord of the Rings reference. That's what it is. Lord of the Rings. Sorry, I pressed the wrong thing there and got screwed up. Yeah, Helm's Deep is Lord of the Rings. Sorry. I'm a nerd, but I guess I'm not a super nerd. I knew I heard it from something like that. Okay, yeah, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I hope you have a good night. Peace. Love. See ya. I really appreciate it. Now I need to figure out how to turn off live stream. Oh, there it is. Bye-bye, everybody.